Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Senior Lakers Insider, as well as lead Lakers content creator for Offside. Joined on this fine Sunday evening, my time, late afternoon, probably your time, by you guys. The Lakers have a rare back-to-back set of days off that they are currently enjoying, spending much of it, I believe, on the golf course, which was kind of funny to listen to JJ Redick talk about. But with the Lakers taking or having an extra day off here, it means that I get to record the Sunday/Monday mailbag on Sunday for Monday. So here we are. So today on the show, I'm going to go through the news that Luka will remain suspended for tomorrow's game against the Washington Wizards. We will go over, this has become a talking point online, the returns on recent end of season award voting and just kind of collective national Lakers coverage. And I'm going to, kind of give my thoughts on that relatively quickly, because there's no way to talk about that and not sound spoiled and whiny. So we'll talk about that stuff though. And then, like I said, we have a few questions in the iTunes mailbag. Hopefully we'll get a few questions here from the live chat. And then we'll get you guys out of here with plenty of time to enjoy the rest of your weekends. So without any further ado, we'll dive on in. But first, we got to talk. We got to remind you guys, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Please turn on those notifications. Please turn on those YouTube notifications, which makes the show notifications all more worthwhile. And then if you guys are listening to the show in the morning via podcast, please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you get your pods, preferably on Odyssey, but anywhere that you get them is perfectly fine with me. All right, let's go ahead and dive on in, starting with the actual news facing the Lakers, that being Luka Doncic's suspension for his 16th technical foul. So the play in question here, after the whistle, and Zaire Williamson, or I think it's Zaire something. But I think he's like a childhood friend or a childhood teammate of Bronny's, which makes this even funnier. But Zaire kind of walks by Luka and he's chirping a little bit. And it was very clear he was trying to get a rise out of Luka, who in the interest of complete fairness here, Luka has to know that that's what teams are going to be trying to do, and typically does. But this time, Zaire kind of walks by him. He's yelling, kind of, obviously a little obnoxiously on purpose. And as Zaire walks by him, Luka gives him a shove in the lower back. And I say shove incredibly lightly here. I've seen Draymond with 1T do exponentially more than this and not even get a double T, because that would get him thrown out of the game. And but in this case, Luka guides Zaire. I'm gonna get this kid's name right. Zaire no, not Franklin. Yeah, it is Williams. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Zaire Williams. He kind of guides Williams away from him. As soon as Williams feels that hand on his lower back, he throws out his hand out this way. It catches Luka in the chest / chin area. Luka kind of steps back like this. And the decision that gets made there live in the moment is double T. And it's like, I thought that was lame and weak by normal double T standards, but the referee is aware of the fact that like a double T means that Luca is suspended for the next game. And, you'll see this often. Obviously, I used Draymond as the example of a guy who picks up a tee and then gets away with a little bit more because he knows, or they know, that the ref doesn't want to throw him out of the game. Like that happens all the time with Draymond Green. But also, like if a player picks up a fifth foul, especially if a superstar picks up a fifth foul, either his teammates will be aware of it and they'll raise their hand to make sure they don't get they can pick up a foul and make it so that their superstar teammate doesn't foul out. Referees will often be cognizant of the fact that a sixth foul would result in a player being thrown out. Like this is the kind of thing, one of those unwritten things that have existed in the NBA air quotes rule book for a long ass time. And I thought that honestly, what he said to Goga was probably worse than what actually happened here with Williams. And I thought for sure that this would get rescinded, and that this was the Lakers after the Orlando game, they like lobbied on behalf of Luca so that he would get that T rescinded. And then I figured they would do that again. And when they didn't, I thought it was like they didn't think they needed to. It was such a weak T that they figured it would just get rescinded because it would lead to a suspension if it wasn't. And here we are, right? Like it wasn't rescinded. Luca is in fact going to be suspended for the Washington game. And I just think that all of this was handled incredibly poorly. So here we are. Now, as far as like the impact that Luca being suspended against Washington brings about, Lakers should be able to beat the Washington Wizards without Luka Doncic. Their record without him isn't great, which is something that he does not share in common with the other guys who he is being compared to for MVP. But I think the Lakers should be able to take care of this one tomorrow night against Washington, and they should be able to generate enough offense to make up for Luca's, not being there. And I also think there's a bit of a benefit here for Luca in that like you had these couple of days off before the Washington game. It's a game that especially recently with the way that the Lakers have been kind of playing, they've been very tired. So they've been like sticking in these games against the inferior opponents. Which leads to longer minutes. So it'll be nice that the Lakers, hopefully they take care of business here. And it'll be nice that Luca gets an extra day or an extra game's worth of rest, because that rest, that energy, just the gas in the tank is going to become more and more and more important, not just as the season comes to a close, but obviously as you prepare for the playoffs ahead. So a bummer that we won't get to see Luka go for 84 against the team that allowed Bam Adebayo to score 83. That is one of the unfortunate side effects or trickle down or downstream effects of this decision or this series of decisions. But at the end of the day, I think it might wind up being a net positive here for the Lakers, as you should be able to pick up the win even without Luka. And then on top of it, Luka gets a little bit of rest. And by the way, it wouldn't surprise me, if the Lakers play, I'd have to look at their schedule, but in these games against these vastly inferior opponents, it wouldn't surprise me if the Lakers maybe look to get LeBron a night off or look to get Austin a night off. I know that they are in the heat of a brutal race to the finish line so that they can finish the season with the 3 seed. And hopefully, Denver finishes the season with the 4 seed so that they, in the second round, have to play OKC. That would be great. But we'll kind of see how this all plays out. But yeah, it sucks. I think it's a lame decision here from the league, and it's kind of what I've come to expect of what has become a pretty lame league office. So on what was it? Friday? No, Thursday's Great Western Forum, Pete presented a stat that was pretty eye-opening, right? And he according to his research found that the Lakers over the last 15 years have been nominated for fewer than every other team in the league other than the Washington Wizards for like the final nominations for end of season awards. And in those 15 years, right, they've won multiple championships. They've employed LeBron James. They've employed Anthony Davis. They have employed a coach like Frank Vogel. They have had a player in Austin Reeves who has improved probably more than any other player of the last 5 years. They have, they now employ Luka Doncic, and so it's like, and as we wrap up this season, right, you're getting more and more takes on who should be where with what voting and where in the nominations player X, Y, or Z ranks and stuff. And most recently, the one that caught my attention was Chris Mannix, who was trying to explain that actually Jaylen Brown deserves more of a better chance at MVP or a spot in the first team All NBA squad over Luka Doncic. An absolutely asinine point of view that, unfortunately, a lot of people apparently share within the national media ranks. So I don't want to go and kind of retread the path laid by Pete with his stats there. If you want those stats, you should listen to that episode of the LFR pod. But what I will do is retread over the path that I have laid over the years, which is explain why the Lakers are covered the way that they are nationally, and especially compared to how they're covered locally, right? Locally, for the most part, you're going to get a more positive spin no matter who the team is, whether it's the Lakers, the Clippers, right? When the aspiration thing was going on, a lot of Clippers fans were just kind of not fans, but people who would cover the Clippers did the kind of boilerplate, oh, we just got to wait for the investigation. Nothing we could possibly report on any further here than Pablo Torre. We're just going to wait and see how this thing plays out. I thought that kind of stood out as like, that doesn't seem right. There was another instance, right, where Andrew Wiggins was absent from the Golden State Warriors, and after that entire ordeal came to a close, you had Bob Myers thanking members of the media for not covering it, and that's kind of what has become expected of local coverage here with teams. It's that, the fans kind of demand that, and almost, for lack of a better term, loyalty of the people who cover their team, locally. And I get plenty of criticism for not doing that, right? Now nationally, right? I think for the most part, there isn't like a general sway one way or the other. I do think the Knicks get a lot more benefit of the doubt than they probably should. I think Boston gets a little bit more benefit of the doubt than they probably should. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that if you look at where a lot of these voices are from, like literally the people that cover those teams now, or the NBA nationally, a lot of people are from the East Coast, right? I was in a text exchange with somebody a little bit earlier today, and they asked me, like, who are these national voices that you're saying have these East Coast biases. I'm not saying that all of these people have East Coast biases. I'm just going to point out where they're from. And this was just off the top of the head. This list might actually be longer. But just, off the top of my head, you obviously have Bill Simmons, who is kind of like the nth degree example. Chris Mannix is also from Boston. Kevin O'Connor, Tom Haberstroh, Zach Lowe, Michael Pena, Howard Beck, Tim Bontemps, like Fred Katz, like all of these people either are from or currently reside on the East Coast. And I'm not saying that like it has to be this ugly thing. It's really not. Like I cover the Lakers from the Central Time Zone. I am 2 hours ahead of Lakers games, which is why I'm so cranky whenever I hear that the Lakers are starting their game at like 10 o'clock. It's like that's midnight, right? And like by the time like those home games, like, when the Lakers aren't playing well and it's a home game, and I'm staying up until like 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning, um, I like I'm a little extra cranky there because it's 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, if you're on the East Coast and you're on the Eastern time zone, that's a full hour more. And a lot of these people have to be up early in the morning for whatever channel or channels it is that they work for, which means typically, and this is where the East Coast bias reality came about. Typically, these people uh, aren't watching; they aren't staying up to watch the West Coast game that started at 10:30 Eastern time or 11 o'clock Eastern time. Um, if they do watch it at all, it's the next morning and it's usually fast forwarded with any number of other things that they are supposed to be, paying attention to whenever it is that they're watching those games. And this goes for all the teams on the West Coast. I think a lot of teams like I grew up rooting for Pac-10 or Pac-12 football, and the way that nationally, the Pac 12 or the Pac 10 was often talked about, especially in comparison to the SEC, drove me nuts. And it's like, this notion that the SEC should get upwards of one or two spots every single year in the college football playoff, even when it was as few as four teams, like that drove me insane because it's like there's some pretty damn good football being played on the West Coast. I remember one of the schools that my high school played against every so often was Long Beach Poly, and Long Beach Poly produced the most future professional football players of any high school, I believe, in the country. And you would never know it based on how LB Poly was covered or talked about. Um, and so like that is just like from a very practical standpoint, what is at play there when you have, uninformed takes spewing from the likes of Chris Mannix when he says that Luka Doncic doesn't play any defense whatsoever. The Lakers defense is actually way worse when Luka isn't on the court. And I know that defensive rating is a collective stat. It's not an individual stat, but that was what Chris Mannix was using. And if you're going to use that stat, then you may as well use it correctly. And so like I was just from a practical standpoint, I think it's very difficult for people on the East Coast to be informed to the extent that they should be about West Coast teams. Now you add on top of that like a potential anti-Lakers bias here. And I'll get to like the actual one here in a second. But Charles Barkley, one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot over, basically since he said it, and certainly over the last couple of days or so, while this has been this online conversation, Charles Barkley, in a game that the Lakers literally won, was like angry that the Lakers won because according to him, it meant that everybody was going to now talk about the Lakers like they're some kind of contender. and he thought that that was bullshit, that they weren't a contender. All the Lakers did after that was win like 9 games total, including a few games against playoff teams, and kind of cement themselves as a legitimate contender since he came out with that quote. And it made me think, like, if you're on ESPN, right? If you're a part of ESPN's national NBA coverage, or TNT's, or now it's NBC's or Amazon's, right? You're going to have to talk about the Lakers regardless, because they're always going to be a story. If the Lakers are bad, that's a story. If they're good, that's a story. If they're mediocre and they have enough talent that, where being mediocre is underachieving, then that's a story, right? And I can see why, from a very human standpoint, that would get old. Right? Like, why do I have to talk about the Lakers? There are 29 other teams in the league, some of which I actually like. Why do I have to talk about the Lakers every single broadcast? And I think what sometimes happens is, because the Lakers are talked about so much, they're held to, I think, a higher standard for some of these end of season awards things, or what it takes to be seen as a contender. Like, I remember entering the 2019-2020 playoffs, basically before every series that the Lakers played in, there was always, a few of these East Coasters who would just constantly make the case that the Lakers were about to be upset, right? Like, I remember the Trailblazers being called the greatest 8 seed of all time. And the Lakers promptly raced right through them. I remember the Houston Rockets were a team that was supposed to beat the brakes off of the Lakers because of the statistical advantages that they have, right? Specifically from, shooting the three. And we saw how that series played out. The Denver Nuggets were supposed to beat the Lakers with an ascending Nikola Jokic and all of these other things. And the Lakers wind up beating them. And then you get to the finals, and there were certainly plenty of people who were taking Miami's toughness over the Lakers. Though by the time the Lakers got to the finals, right, I think people had finally kind of started to come around to, okay, yeah, they're good. And I'll never forget it, though, like, because it always led to better odds in those series than the Lakers probably should have been getting. And back then I was still betting a lot more on sports, and did all right. And so, like, uh I think that, like, when it comes to end of season awards or status as a contender and all of these things, if you talk about a team and you do so reluctantly, as frequently as a lot of these people do on some of these national platforms, eventually you're just like, no, I'm not going to take you seriously, even you maybe should be. And I think that's kind of what that's where that Charles Barkley, like, stubbornly saying this win doesn't mean shit. Remember, it was a game that the Lakers won by way of Austin Reeves's miraculous free throw, right? Even after that game, Shaq's take about that game was, and this is like the former Laker, but Shaq's take about that game was that he would have rather lost it than have to win by missing a free throw intentionally. What? And so, like, I look at how a lot of these conversations sound, and I first start by trying to give people the benefit of the doubt and figure out where this tension or this sentiment might be coming from in a way that I can relate to. But then also, cynically, it makes a lot of sense to criticize the Lakers on these national platforms. Wow, UConn coming back on Duke. Like, so here's how I've explained it, and this is something I noticed very early in my career. Um, when you talk about the Lakers positively, from a national standpoint, and I think this is part of why ESPN, Amazon, NBC doesn't really employ very many former Lakers within their ranks. Um, but when you explain that the Lakers are actually good, or that they're real, or that they're legit, yes, you'll have Lakers fans saying like, "Finally, somebody's saying it," right? But for the most part, like the non-Lakers fans, of which like there are more non-Lakers fans than there are Lakers fans in terms of like sheer number of NBA fans. And so when you say that the Lakers are good, or when you speak positively about the Lakers, those fans just kind of like roll their eyes and, oh great, the national people are overrating the Lakers again. Here goes the Cowboys thing, or the Yankees thing, and this and that. And like, and the engagement on that isn't going to be very good. And I remember this was the case back when Kobe was still playing, where every year ESPN would do their like ESPN rank, and every time Kobe was like 3 spots further than, not only that he should be, but like 3 spots like further down the list than you could even somewhat realistically have him at. And like very early on in my career, I kind of understood where that was coming from, where it's like non-Lakers fans are going to enjoy that somebody is shitting on the Lakers and putting the Lakers and their annoying fans in their place. Lakers fans are going to quote tweet it and hate read it and hate listen to it, and then share it so that other people can dunk on it. And it just kind of forms this cycle of negativity that often isn't all that productive for anybody other than the people who are trying to generate that amount of engagement. And it just winds up feeling really cynical. And I think a lot of times, when I hear the Lakers talk, I for one thing, I don't really listen anymore or read anymore of my peers and colleagues and stuff. Just because, one, I don't want to like steal anybody's takes. I never want to even like risk that. But also because I just kind of like, what do I need to read somebody else's opinion about the Lakers for? Like I'm watching the Lakers. Like, I'm covering the Lakers. And like, okay, yeah, if the Lakers are getting ready to play a team in a playoff series, I'll go and seek out content about the team that they're about to play, right? And my friends who cover that other team that they're about to play, I'll seek out that content so that I can learn about the team that the Lakers are getting ready to play. But for the most part, like, what do I have to gain from listening to somebody talk about the Lakers without the amount of context that I have when I talk about the Lakers, or the amount of like, I will say I do listen, or I do take in content about the Lakers locally. I think the beat is about as good as it's ever been. In terms of like the beat reporters who follow the team around, I think it is you compare it to what it was when I started in this industry, or when I was growing up, and the amount of coverage and morsels that we get from people on the actual beat is bar none. You look at, and this is an incredibly competitive industry now, where all of the podcasts, you have LFR, you have Yovan, you have my show, you have Lakers Nation, you have Silver Screen, you have people who are doing this on a more individual basis, right? Guys like Vinay, and you have the Coach's Den back when it was still going, and you have all kinds of options. Lakers fans have all kinds of options. Jason Tim spends obviously a lot of time talking about the Lakers. You have all kinds of options to draw your eyes, in coverage of the Lakers locally, and all of those platforms are going to, have more context than national platforms will. And it's really rare that I'll learn anything listening to a conversation about the Lakers from one of those national platforms. It's a much higher likelihood that I'll tune into like one of Raj's video breakdowns or one of Pete and Darius's conversations and either learn something or think of something differently than I did before because I know how much work it takes to cover this team in a fully contextualized manner. So, and honestly, like that's why I think NBA coverage and sports coverage has gone the direction it has. Where now I think there are some uh like the markets have dictated, and some of these platforms have kind of dictated like how they would prefer it to be, like the NBA and sports to be covered. I think this industry would prefer to have like 4 or 5 huge shows because those huge shows are a lot easier to monetize than a series of smaller, team specific shows are. But end of the day, like in terms of audiences and stuff like that, it's why the Locked On network has grown the way that it has. It's why Odyssey has spent so much energy trying to to acquire or to enlist as many Lakers people as possible. Offside took that same approach. Like, yes, there are the shows that succeed, right? Simmons' show is huge, and Lowe's show is huge, and the Hoop Collective is a show that just continues to grow. And when those shows cover other teams, like I will tune in to those shows on occasion just to see what the sense is on some of those other teams or whatever. But when it comes to the Lakers, like I have no real interest in hearing other opinions on the Lakers because what am I going to get from it? And I think a lot of fans are starting to feel the same way. And the more that we see stuff like this, the further embedded local shows are going to become, and the further isolated national coverage is going to continue to that's the trend that's going to continue there. That was way more time on that I wanted to spend. So let's go ahead and dive on into the mailbag. So the first question I have here comes from 3 weeks ago. It's been a long time since we've done one of these mailbags, and my apologies. But this is from Viva Exceptionalism writing. Anthony Kobe Buffkin's agency also represents Rui and Marcus, as well as players like Suggs, Duran, Dort, Evan Mobley, Mitchell Robinson, Eason, and many others. Do you think the Lakers sign him to a standard contract to curry favor with his agency? Also, given your views on Jason Kidd's and Jackson Hayes' past legal issues, how would you have handled the issue Kobe had in Colorado? Finally, is there any good ceviche in Austin? I actually just had some incredible ceviche. Unfortunately, it was in El Paso, and it was the ceviche that my tia made, and it was incredible. But yeah, look, is there any blank food in Austin? Yes, like the food scene out here is insane. And honestly, like outside of Mexican food, which I am very particular about for, which should be obvious reasons, Austin probably has food on par with just about any city that I've been to out, that isn't New Orleans. New Orleans exists on a plane unto itself, like in many regards. New Orleans is just like up here. But as far as food goes, I would say Austin is like a tier below that. I haven't been to New York though, and I do really miss the food from Southern California. But Austin has great whatever food it is that you're looking for. All right, so going in order here, was Kobe Buffkin's signing an effort to further curry favor with other clients of his agency? Maybe. I would say how they treat Rui and Marcus will probably go further in that regard. Suggs, I don't think is going anywhere anytime soon. Neither is Duran. He's about to get a supermax probably. Dort, possibly, I could see, the Lakers hoping that the way that they treat Buffkin and the way that they treat Rui and the way that they treat Marcus will help Dort's agent to kind of guide him to the Lakers if the Thunder have a couple cap casualties. Evan Mobley probably not going anywhere anytime soon. Mitchell Robinson could be on the move, but I don't. I'm his injury history makes me real nervous. And then Tari Eason is a restricted free agent, so I don't think he's going anywhere. Restricted free agency has just become a brutal process in recent years. But yeah, I could see that being a factor there. I just think it's more a factor of that was a player that Rob Pelinka really, really, really liked during the draft process, and he had an opportunity to acquire him. And once they acquired him, and the Lakers got word that some other team out there might have interest in Kobe Buffkin, they jumped at the opportunity to convert him to a full-time NBA player, and I think they did so as a mistake. The final part of this question, also given your views on Jason Kidd's and Jackson Hayes' past legal issues, how would you have handled the issue Kobe had in Colorado? Well, this is like an impossible conversation to have at this point, especially since Kobe's passing. So I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time on it. But my stance, just from a very general standpoint, is start by believing the victim, right? Start there. Not saying, jump straight to punishment of the aggressor or the alleged aggressor, but start by at the very least, like, all right, let's have an open mind as we head down this path. And there was certainly plenty of uh, ammunition for the prosecutors as they went after Kobe in that case. And to this day, there are plenty of people who were close to that process who say that Kobe did it. Um, the way that it all played out, there was a settlement. There were some questions about that entire ordeal, and how I would have covered it is the same way that I covered Jason Kidd's and Jackson Hayes's similar issues, which is wait for all of the information to come out, and if there is enough legal grounds to pursue charges or to convict somebody of something, then that person is dead to me. And with Kobe, that never wound up being the case. It is still a part of his story. It is something that he had to learn from, and hopefully that experience was not too hard on the victim. It's the victims are the people that I truly, truly always am going to feel for. And then, for Kobe, I would hope, and it seemed, that he really learned over the course of what was left of his life. And if I just it would have been an impossible situation to cover back then, and it's even more difficult to cover it right now, because no matter where you come down in this conversation, you're going to be yelled at, right? There are going to be people who listen to the segment and say, "Oh, you're way too easy on Kobe. You're hypocritical. You're this. You're that. How dare you say that you believe the victim when you don't outright say that Kobe is a monster?" There are going to be people who listen to this and say, "How dare you believe the victim? How dare you go with there was a settlement? How dare you even insinuate that anything happened there?" Like, there's no way to have to have this conversation here that isn't going to piss somebody off. And that's why I would just handle it from an extremely fact-based standpoint. That's all that I could possibly do, out of respect to all the people who were directly impacted by that situation. Next question here from Q Breezy 12. It was known Kennard was a deadeye, but didn't expect him to attack closeouts and make decisions as quickly as he has, and he hasn't gotten eaten alive defensively yet. What impact do you expect from him in the playoffs? And does he have a future with the Lakers beyond this year? Is he one of Rob's better moves? Well, I mean, it's kind of tough to say he's among Rob's better moves when you like the Luka trade is one of his better moves, and acquiring Anthony Davis is one of his better moves, and building a title winner, right, was a series of some of his better moves. I don't think acquiring Kennard sits anywhere near that category of moves. Um, what I will say was that it was it honestly perfectly encapsulated the type of offseason that the Lakers had in the summer before this season, where it was a solid move. And in the summer, they had, oh my God, Duke is going to blow it. Oh my goodness. Oh my God, UConn. Oh my God, Duke, what are you doing? I don't even care how annoying Dan Hurley is. That was and Duke of all schools. Oh, sorry, Sabrina. Oh my gosh. Man, what a shot from the logo. Wow. Unbelievable. I hope you guys are seeing that. But all right, so that's one of the worst losses I've seen. Couldn't happen to a worse school. But yeah, so the Kennard move, I think, perfectly kind of encapsulated the type of offseason that the Lakers had, where all summer and at the beginning part of the season, I said it was a solid summer given the parameters that the Lakers set on themselves. And I think it was a solid trade deadline given the parameters that the Lakers had set on themselves. The problem is that when you analyze the Lakers roster, or you analyze the Lakers offseason, or you analyze the Lakers trade deadline in comparison to their competitors who don't have those parameters placed upon themselves, that's where the offseason, this deadline falls a little short, right? Because, and this is the inherent problem with any kind of two timeline approach to team building, which is if you are not at all solely focused on rebuilding or building up through youth and that type of a timeline, or if you're not fully focused on winning and taking full advantage of a championship window while it is open, you are going to be inherently at a disadvantage to the teams that are solely focused on one of those two timelines. And with the Lakers being as focused as they were this season on this upcoming summer, that put them at an inherent disadvantage compared to their competitors who don't care as much about this upcoming summer. And what it means is that this upcoming summer better be good enough to put at risk a season that now shows as much promise as it does. So we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. But Luke Kennard was a very solid acquisition, somebody who the Lakers are significant, not maybe not significantly, but very tangibly better as a result of. And look, he's not Gabe Vincent, which is, just kind of nice. The next question here comes from Angel RS042410, who writes, not everyone will remember, but I remember Robert Parrish being wheeled off and on and off the court to get the all-time games played record. LeBron James will just put up a 15 rebound triple-double in the game where he tied Parrish. LeBron is 41 years old. Every time he steps on the court, he is doing something we have never seen before, nor will we ever see it again. Wow, what a time to be alive. Uh, it is like another stat that I think always kind of flies on the radar is at the time of breaking Kareem Abdul Jabbar's total points scored record, LeBron was averaging almost double the number of points per game that Kareem was in that final season. And, it's just astounding what this guy is able to do at this stage of his life and at this stage of his career. I'm recording this right now. I'm 39 years old. I turned 40 in October. And I'm recording this with a very sore back because I did lawn work yesterday. Now, my lawn work is a little different from most. We sit on about a third or half of an acre. So it's and like we sit on a big hill. So it is it's not like, long. I remember when I had to take care of like my parents' lawn when I was a kid, or the lawns that I had at the various stages of my life. And you're looking at like 10 square feet of grass that you have to mow and a series of plants that you have to water and stuff. So this is a little different, but my back is killing me. And I'm 2 damn years basically younger than LeBron, a year and a half or so, younger than LeBron. And this guy is still scoring more points in transition than any player in the league, which means that he is getting out and beating guys down the court to the tune of scoring more points in transition than any other player in the league, basically. And it's just like, how, man? How do you continue to do this? And then now that the Lakers are like ramping up and getting ready for the playoffs, and it's very clear what kind of role that LeBron needs to play on this team now when Luka is available. He's like, all right, yeah, I'll just be a a plus defender, and I'll rebound my ass off, and I'll defend multiple positions, and I'll bark from the back line, and I'll make whatever rotations I have to make. And if a game calls for more energy, I'll inject that energy into the game. Like the stuff that LeBron is doing is bleeping absurd, absolutely absurd. And yeah, I mean, I like it's one of those things that like I know that conversations about LeBron often head in very annoying and not very productive directions, especially within this fan base at times. But the stuff that this guy is doing, and the fact like the Lakers would be absolutely screwed had he not fought off father time to the extent and for the amount of years that he has. It's just been incredible to watch. All right, let's go through the live chat and see where we're at here. Um, let's see. Gawa 83. Is it reasonable to compare Luca to Larry Bird? Which past legendary player would you compare Austin to? Yeah, I think the Larry Bird Luca comp is a good one. I think I think he's probably the closest. Well, I think he's probably better than Larry. Just like as an individual basketball player, he needs to do more winning for that to be a more viable conversation, though. But in terms of just like basketball talent, Luca's is right there. I Now as far as like who is Austin's historical comp, um, um, Jerry West comes to mind, but I don't want it to be just like a straight white guy to white guy comp. Who's a good comp here? Um, Vinny Johnson? No, yeah, yeah, or like Mark Aguirre, right? Plays more defense than I think those guys did, but those are two like pretty good comps that aren't like the easy white guy to white guy comp. Um, and it those guys, I'm pretty sure Gary. I think Gary won a championship. I think when he got to Detroit, he won one, and then Vinny Johnson obviously won a couple there with Boston. Yeah, I think those are or a fun. Let's see, who would be like Byron is a pretty good comp for Austin, right? I think Byron was a better athlete than Austin is. But like that kind of combo guard who can also handle the ball a little bit. I think Austin is a quite a bit better passer than Byron was. But though, like I would say that caliber of player, probably I think the Lakers need Austin to be a better player than Byron in order for the Luka Austin combination to work to the tune of a championship. But he's in that like kind of category of oversized one, undersized, or like slightly less athletic than you would like him to be too. But very, very, very good player. Somebody I'm like I am rooting for like from various standpoints to be as good as the Lakers think he is. Let's see. Yeah, Marshawn, like I feel it, dude. Like Marshawn, I'd be up till 2 a.m. just to watch a basketball game. And like it's always funny to me when a recent retiree from a league like jumps into the booth and everybody go like raves about that recent retiree. Oh my God, Tony Romo is like the next John Madden. He's so good at this. He's so good at that. And then like 5 years later, when that player becomes more and more and more detached from the sport, people start to say, like, are you sure that Tony Romo is actually good at this? Why did we think he was so good as recently as 5 years ago? What happened there? And it's like these guys are worth millions and millions and millions of dollars and have better things to do with their time than sit there and watch hours and hours and hours of tape. And Tony Romo, when he had just retired and jumped right into the booth, was, had hours and hours and hours of tape backlogged in his brain that became more and more useless the longer he spends as a retired NFL player. And the same goes for like, the people or the former NBA players who do like first take, right? Like Kendrick Perkins is going to be up first thing in the morning on East Coast time after being up really late into the night watching a Laker game the night. No, he didn't watch the game the night before. He's on ESPN on First Take or something like that. Jay Williams, those guys, that guy shows on even earlier than First Take, right? Like the notion that like a lot of these voices, and often whether they're a former player or not, they're millionaires or close to it, are sitting there staying up until the wee hours of the morning so that they can wake up 3 hours later and go on ESPN and argue with Stephen A. Smith as he screams in their ear about whatever nonsensical take he thought up that morning. Like, absolutely not. I'm sorry. Those former players are not doing all that. It's not a thing. Let's see. Pinty 23, Luca might win MVP if he cures cancer. I don't know. Like it depends on what cancer that he cures, right? Like if it's like pinky nail cancer, I bet, I bet Chris Mannix would be like, I mean, really, how important is your pinky nail? You know? It's just like the way that people talk about Luca. It's crazy to me because like Luca is on this incredible run. Did something over the course of the Lakers 6-game road trip that hadn't been done since 1986. And since Michael did it in 1986, which is average 40 points over a 6-game road trip. And yet, like, while that is all going on, you have people becoming even more entrenched in the stance that like somehow Jaylen Brown is more deserving of a end of season award than Luka Doncic. Huh? Excuse me? And people are like, oh, well, he hasn't had Tatum for much of the year. Okay. Luka didn't have LeBron for the first like quarter of the season. Luka didn't have Austin for like the first quarter of the season. And then when he did have those guys, they were clearly trying to get back into shape and clearly trying to figure these things out. Jaylen Brown, he gets to have Joe Mazzulla on his sidelines. And Mazzulla is a significantly better coach than JJ Redick is right now. Um, they have the organizational well-being to employ a Derek White and to employ a Peyton Pritchard and to employ like to develop the guys who have kept the Celtics afloat and the way that they have kept the Celtics afloat. The Lakers have been a bit of a mess. And yet somehow, some way, the Lakers have only one fewer loss than the Boston Celtics this season. All the while, Luka has been averaging more insert counting stat X here than Jaylen Brown, right? And there's, well, Jaylen played more defense. He sure looks like he has. He looks like he's more capable as a defender. Dude looks like an Avenger. Luka, meanwhile, I think his impact numbers on the defensive side are actually better than Jaylen Brown's. Go figure. All right. So let's go to the. Ooh, that's a good one. You know what's annoying, Sebastian? I said Manu like last year and went viral for saying that he was Manu Ginobili. But yeah, Manu Ginobili, I think is Austin's best comp, and it's because Manu at any given time, he was a six man, the best six man ever, right? And sometimes he was option A, sometimes he was option B, sometimes he was option C. And he thrived no matter where he stood in the Spurs offense. Played enough defense to be effective, smart defender, good team defender kind of a deal, and helped his teams win that way. Now, we'll see if eventually Austin needs to move to the bench as Manu did back in the day, but that's the comp. That's the comp to make there. Also kind of fun because they both play basketball in weird ways. It's really kind of funny listening to Nash and LeBron talk to Austin about how weirdly he plays basketball and the things that like he does off of 1 foot or 2 feet or off of his right foot or his left foot or using his right hand or his left hand or the way that he uses it behind the back dribble compared to how everybody else uses the behind the back dribble. Really fun segment of that podcast there. And Manu was very much the same way, just a super awkward guy to try to defend. Funny fact on that one, Austin's camp has been calling him Manu for a while now. Let's see. I will answer one more question here and get us out of here. I'll answer two. Mistra has one, and then Sebastian has one. So, I've been watching you since the 2015 season. What's your thoughts on D'Angelo Russell's career as it seems to be coming to a close? Yeah, very, very, very smart basketball player who didn't put that basketball brain to its fullest use on the defensive side, and as such was always kind of limited as a team's like he was never going to be a team's best player if that team wanted to do anything. So yeah, you got a fun player. Like when D'Lo has it going, there are very few other more fun players to kind of watch because he's just like not very fast. If he dunks on somebody, it's like super embarrassing for the person that he just dunked on. He, is a great incredibly streaky, but at times great shooter who had the confidence to just pull from anywhere, especially if he was hot. So, a fun player, and he was probably a lot more fun than he was good or positively impactful. Um, and I think his days are probably just about numbered in the NBA. But he probably has a very bright future. Like if he wants to keep playing, he's made a ton of money. But if he wants to keep playing, like he'll probably go make a ton of money in Europe or anywhere else around the world playing basketball. He's still a talented basketball player. I just think the NBA has moved on from that archetype of player. But still, pretty freaking good career for somebody who is not particularly athletic. Mistra asking, Anthony, do you agree with me that some voters' vote is outdated and should be rescinded because they don't watch games? How should someone that does not watch games be able to influence who wins those awards? Yeah, I mean, eh, I don't. A lot of how these awards are kind of handed out, like the votes themselves are handed out, are based on platform size, and corporate partnerships and stuff like that. Like one thing that I wish we would stop doing is stop giving um like the channel that broadcasts a team, that broadcast channels employees probably should, or voices probably shouldn't vote on end of season awards because they're going to be slanted. Like I actually think we would greatly benefit from a significantly either shrink the pool way down, so you're only looking at five or so voters for end of season awards, have incredibly strict measurements and expectations on those five voters, and detach end of season award results from contract incentives, because agencies have gotten a hold of that stuff, and I think that has impacted some of the results as well. Not in terms of like who wins or loses or whatever, but in terms of like that one random player who gets a vote at the end of the season. You're like, why did Lou Williams get an MVP vote? Like, sometimes you can kind of see the deals that are being done there. I think either you shrink it way down or you expand it way out, right? And you include idiots like me, or because the thing about bloggers get a whole bunch of shit for a variety of reasons, but um, I think bloggers and podcasters, like, we probably spend a lot more time thinking about this stuff and fighting and scratching and clawing for every dollar that we earn, or every dollar that we could potentially earn, or any future potential gig that we might be able to get one day. Like those um those bloggers who do that and are willing to spend that much time relatively thanklessly at times, like the fact that the NBA hasn't thought to itself, you know what, we should throw them a bone in this specific regard, is kind of frustrating, honestly. And I'm not saying that from like, I don't, if I was offered a vote, I think I would take it, but I don't have, like, I'm more thinking about like, you know, the Nikiases of the world, or Steve Jones, or although they might have votes now that they work for Yahoo. Um, but like um there are any number of really really bright basketball minds who don't have votes, and you compare it to like Michael Wilbon, who brags on every other broadcast on ESPN that he hasn't watched a game since 1995 or whatever it is, because he hates the modern athlete. Like, that guy shouldn't have a vote. That guy goes to bed at 8:30 every night. Like, he might watch like the first quarter or first half of the East Coast game and then knock out. That guy shouldn't have a vote. I don't care how long he's been doing this. If he's not watching anymore, he shouldn't be watching any, or he shouldn't be voting on these things. And he for damn sure shouldn't be talking about the league or anybody else who covers the league as loudly as he does. But yeah, I wish that all of that was kind of we completely rethought. Because I think the way that it's done now is like the worst possible way to do it. All right. That is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you to everybody for hopefully subscribing and hopefully hitting that like button and hopefully turning on notifications, both for the show and for YouTube, and hopefully subscribing in its podcast form as well, and hopefully telling your friends about this thing that we are continuing to build here. I am back after the game tomorrow night. Probably a little crabby and a little cranky because I will be up as late as I will be to watch the Washington Wizards play basketball. So until then, until the next time you guys hear from me, I'm Anthony Irwin saying, have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your weekend. Make somebody else's, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Also, quick shout out, Gary Woodland, for winning today. One of the best stories in all of sports. Google him, learn about his story. Dude just had brain surgery a couple of years ago, had to fight the yips, had to fight the trauma of that brain surgery, had to, fight, scratch and claw, and only a couple of years later, win himself a tournament out there in Houston. Amazing story. Yeah, I'm telling you, whatever video that you find about it, grab a tissue, watch his reaction, watch his wife's reaction to it. Amazing stuff. Congrats, Gary. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.